All right, we are back on. I'm going to bring our next guest on here shortly, which is Marilyn Wilson with the WAV Group. I had a conversation with Marilyn the other day, and it was one of the most insightful conversations I've had in a while as far as just general market. They do a ton of research on the market. And we're going to talk about creating and selling a value proposition to your agents. Marilyn, you're on. How's it going?
It's going great. How you doing, Zach?
Doing so good. I've been really excited. It's funny. A couple of the conversations we were having earlier sessions, I was thinking, man, I can't wait to get to Marilyns because it ties in so much with what you and I want to talk about, which is a lot of times brokerages and teams have amazing technology. They've put so much work into all these different things and they forget to go out and actively sell that to their agents, right? So we'll
Absolutely.
get into that. Marilyn, maybe you could just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us who you are, what background you come from.
Sure. So, can you hear me? You went blank there for a second. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you. Yep, we're hearing you all right.
Okay, good. So after graduating from Cornell University, which is a lot harder to get into these days, I just found out my daughter's at Syracuse. So I found out about that. I've worked in consumer packaged goods and marketing and product development pretty much my whole career, and have been in real estate now for, I don't know, way too long, 20 plus years. And basically our job is to help brokerages, technology companies figure out how to get to the next step, how we call it creating positive waves of change. Right? What is it that you need? So sometimes it's research, sometimes it's strategic planning, sometimes it's an amazing new leader. It's all of those things. So that's what WAVE Group does, is we basically help you succeed in a variety of different ways. And, kind of stir it up a little bit here and there, trying to, let people see things a little differently than they may. So that's kind of what consultants do, right? Then we also have RE Technology, which is a site. And by the way, if anybody on the call wants it, just put your email in and I'll grab you a free subscription to it. It's usually $200 a year, but it's a site to go learn about technology on a daily basis. And it has probably the biggest directory of technologies available, real easy to find all in one place. So we do agent articles, broker articles, team articles, MLS and association articles, if anybody cares about that on this call, I don't know. So all different types of stuff, but it's really to help each of us with little snippets every single day to just keep moving forward. So that's what I do.
I love it. That's awesome. So you talk about, and you work across the board, you work with agents, brokerages, teams, and you mentioned that there are things a lot of times that little shifts in thinking that you're able to bring in as a consultant. What are some of those things typically that you're finding you can add the most value?
Well, again, I think a lot of it is sometimes we take what we do, even if we do it super well, we take it for granted. We just assume everyone knows what we do and that we're amazing. And that starts even at the agent level of when you meet with a client or a potential client, do you really tell them all the things you do as an agent? I had a great conversation with an agent that said she got some feedback on a performance rating system and it wasn't so great. And they said, why? Because, well, it didn't look like you did anything. Well, the truth was she's just so good. She just did it. And it was, kind of the duck swimming like this under the water and it's really calm on the top. And they didn't think she did anything just because she was doing it so well. So it never hurts, even if everything's going fine, to mention, hey, we just wanted to let you know I did this and this and this for you today, right? Not in a braggadocious kind of way, but just as a way to keep transparency in what's going on. That's at the agent level. At the broker level, there's a whole bunch of different things, which I think we're going to get into. Technology companies, the same thing. One of the things that, and this is for everybody in the industry, from MLSs to vendors to brokers, we have a tendency, I think, to speak more about the features of the technology and not the benefits of the technology, right? So most agents, there's some that are super tech savvy and they're probably friends with you, Zach. But most of them are tech, I would call them tech interested, but not necessarily tech savvy, right? They don't get up in the morning going, oh, let me learn about a new API. It's just not who they are, right? Yeah. But if you can teach them about why this technology is going to help them, and do it in a context that makes sense. So how can this help me get more leads? How can it help me nurture more relationships? How can it help me stay in touch with my clients after the fact? How can I close the deal faster so I can get my commission check faster? These are all basic things that are so important to every one of our agents. And we forget sometimes. We get like, oh, it's so pretty, it's so exciting, it's so glittery, but we don't talk about what it means in tangible terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm assuming you're talking about this in the sense of I'm a team leader or I'm a broker and I went out and got this piece of technology. Let's say
Right.
I went out and got Sisu and it's the best piece of technology ever, but a lot of times you just take it for granted that they're going to automatically see the value in this new tool that you're buying, right? Is that kind of along the lines of what you're saying?
Exactly. And I mean, I've seen many times, I've seen recruiting presentations from a brokerage, and it'll have this list of all these pretty names and some logos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no explanation or no organization of, there was some logic as to what are each of these tools that were purchased and why, right? But doesn't necessarily look like a system, and it doesn't necessarily look to a new agent about, okay, I don't have enough leads. How can my brokerage help me do that? Every brokerage probably has 3 things that can help them with that, but it's not organized like that, right? It isn't like, almost like a Q&A. If you looked at like a sales funnel and said, what are all the tools I have at the top to generate leads for you, right? What are all the tools I have in the middle that are going to help you warm up? We were just talking about content, right? What are the kinds of things you can do to engage consumers and help them understand what you love and help you understand what they love, right? What does it really mean to do an amazing listing presentation? And what tools do we have to populate that for you? Not to mention an amazing listing presentation itself, right? So you go down every single part of the funnel and look at all the tools that you offer and organize them in a way that an agent can go, oh, I get it. I mean, I've heard from more than one agent said, well, I left, XYZ brokerage because they didn't offer whatever it was. Sometimes the sad part was the brokerage did offer it and the agent didn't know. But sometimes it's because whatever the brokerage was selling or was offering, they weren't pitching the value of it. And I don't mean just like, aren't we amazing? We spent a bunch of money. That agents don't care, right? Why should they? What they care about is, what are you doing to help me sell more real estate, period, the end, right? And so are we selling that regularly? Usually when I talk to brokerages about their marketing departments, they're focused exclusively on selling properties and selling the brand and selling the website. All of those things are absolutely critical, and you have to do all of that. But there's really very little time carved out for selling the brokerage, selling its value, selling the brand power, right? There's so many real estate brokerages that have amazing brand recognition in the local market. Are we taking credit for that? Right? There's a lot of different ways to look at it, but it's basically carving out, if you've got 100 minutes in a day for your marketing team, take 20 minutes of that 100 minutes and say, make it about me in the brokerage, not me, the broker. Sometimes it's about the broker too. Some brokers are so charismatic and exciting. In fact, I have a good story about that. You may know Mark McLaughlin, who ran Pacific Union, now is part of Compass. He has a great philosophy, and this is another way to sell your value proposition. He doesn't have an office. He's got probably, I don't even know now, lots of offices, let's say 30 offices, right? He just goes from office to office to office and in round robin. And the people in the office never know exactly when he's going to be there, which is also a good thing, right? It keeps them on their toes. But more importantly, it gets him close to the action. So he's talking to agents all day long. What's working? What isn't? What's struggling? He can ask them, hey, what do you think of the XYZ technology? Well, I don't even know what that is. Oh, well, that's a problem, right? And that's what we hear too. A lot of times agents don't even know what a brokerage offers, never mind what it does for them.
Right.
So it's like, you got to pay attention to selling, being proud of what you do, and making sure that your agents consistently understand it. And then, of course, it has to have great training that backs that up. So when you get them excited about it, you can say, hey, come to this class. It's take you 30 minutes and I'll teach you these 2-3 things that are awesome. Like, you got to learn how to do that.
Mm-hmm. And is that, I mean, so in this sense, it's once again, it's selling that value proposition.
Mm-hmm.
Is it communication? Is it creating cool marketing? I mean, what are some of the tactical things, I guess, that are being done to actually do that? Or is it just constantly talking about it?
No, I think there's a lot of different things. One of the things that I see, and frankly, I've seen very few brokers do this, is, again, mostly there's a laundry list, right? We give you 25 tools. Isn't that amazing? But what people aren't doing is they're not organizing them and making them easy to access based on what the agent's struggling with, right? So a new agent, what do they need? They need a lot of things, right? But they need lead gen. They need to understand how to build an amazing listing presentation. Like they need to know what's in an amazing listing presentation. They need to understand how to attract buyers, right? And so instead of just giving them a laundry list, you can say, like almost like a Q&A, literally, like, so are you looking for more leads? Try X, Y, Z, and here's training that's available for you on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Saturday, right? Whatever, making up examples, right? But do that for every core sales process, right? So generating leads, nurturing leads, generating potential listing presentations, figuring out how you can be an amazing buyer's agent, all the different things that an agent needs to do. How does your technology support that? Because if it's just a laundry list, they don't know. I'll give you an MLS example. Not that this is relevant, but I think it is for some brokerages too. So if you go into most MLSs today, there's a big dashboard and it's got all these tiles and all these different logos on them. And I've asked so many of my friends, I'm like, have you ever clicked on any of those tiles? They're like, no. And in the meantime, a friend of mine was like, I don't have any leads and I need a CRM. I'm like, okay, so, and I'm not suggesting everyone should work with their MLS, just as an example, right? I said, there's the thing right there. Click on it. That's a CRM. It is? I'm like, yeah, it is. But there's nothing there that tells you it's a CRM. It's just a pretty logo. I mean, we have beautiful logos. That's okay. But that's not enough to get an agent who is not dying to get into technology on a daily basis. Let's face it. It's none of us do. You've got to sell them on how you understand each component of the sales process and how each component you have supported something with a thoughtful purchase. Sometimes it's one entire system. Sometimes it's individual things. Sometimes it's a combination. But on a daily basis, say, what are you struggling with? Leads? Okay, maybe you do an office meeting. It's nothing about lead gen. The next one's all about lead conversion. The next one's all about getting a listing. The next one's up, right? You could just, but you center it around what agents care about as opposed to the cool features of the technology. We tend to do that. We're like, oh, it's so sexy. It has AI. Agents are like, I don't know what an AI is, and I don't know how that's going to help me sell a property next week, right? Connect the dots between the two. So technically, to answer your question, I would say the first thing would be a marketing plan, right? What are we trying to sell? After we've organized what we think are the right, taking the technologies we have, put them in this list of what's good for each one of those sales components, right? Then outline content, just like you do for regular content strategies, right? That you'd be pushing to your agents on a regular basis about a new tool. Hey, are you struggling with leads? Hey, are you out of inventory like everyone in the world is right now? What can I do to help you with that, right? You tie it back to what they care about and then present communications and content. And by the way, lots of technology companies, I'm sure, Zach, I'm sure you guys do this. You have technology content that you would share with brokers if they want to use it, right? You'd be happy to have them help promote the adoption of your tool, because if they adopt your tool, the more likely they're going to stay with you for the long haul, right? And tell other people about it. So that's what I would say is, it's content marketing. It's definitely, like I say, the broker and the managers, depending on the size of the office, right, should all be completely in tune. That's another one of my pet peeves. Sorry, I'll get off talk for a minute, but so many times managers don't understand the technology, aren't even interested in the technology. And so how, when an agent comes to them and says, I'm struggling with something, they're not familiar with the technology, how are they going to help them? Right? And, people say, well, I can't force them. I'm like, usually there's some level of the component of managers that are paid staff. They're employees, right? They're not we have issues with independent contractors, but many times they're not independent contractors. So teach them, get them excited so they can become advocates for this stuff, right? It's like the more people that get excited about what you do and understand how powerful this stuff is, the better it's going to be for everyone.
Yep. And it all kind of ties back to that, what you were saying at the beginning is, you think people know the value that you provide as an agent, as a team leader, as a broker, as a tech vendor. Right. And a lot of times they just don't. You live and breathe it. So of course you think that, right? But you're biased and a lot of times you probably misunderestimate what you actually are providing.
Yeah, I mean, it's great stuff, but if people don't know about it, and again, it's not that they don't know about it. They may know the name of it. They may know some top line level of it, but they don't necessarily know on a tangible daily basis which button should I push to be able to get more leads? Which button should I push to be able to try to attract more buyers, right? It's like it connects back to training, but you got to get them excited about it first. If they don't know it's there, they're like, yeah, whatever. I'll just keep going on. And my broker, one of the things that always scares me the most is when I hear my broker has no value. What? Because guess what? There's other people out there, and we all know who they are, other technology companies every single day telling them about their value because they're great at marketing their value proposition. A broker's got to match them, if not beat them, right? Or she's never going to be able to stand out.
Yep. Marilyn, I have to take this one as an example. Tigo's asking, what's a pitch to get my sales team excited to use our system, which for those of you that aren't familiar, Sisu is it's a sales analytics tracking. It does a lot of around the data and the goals for a sales team. Tigo, my pitch typically to get your team excited using Sisu, or to get anyone excited using Sisu, is if any of your agents were to go out and let's say they were going to pay $1,000 a month to get a Mike Ferry, Tom Ferry, a personal coach that's really going to kick their butt and keep them excited and help them hit their goals. The number one thing that coach is going to do is they're going to provide some kind of system, and a lot of them do it on spreadsheets, to track those numbers so that when this $1,000 a month coach gets on a call with them, they know exactly where they're at as far as numbers go, and they know exactly how to help them, right? That's something, that same type of system that I would go pay $1,000 a month for, with a one-on-one coach, I can get that as part of your team, your brokerage. And it's provided to me just by joining. So that answers your question. And the funny thing is if you take that with XYZ system, like I love that Tigo just asked me that, but if I'm if I'm using a different tool and I want to go ask that vendor how I should sell it to my agents and how to create that value prop, we'll have 100 answers for you, right? So
exactly. Hi, Tigo, by the way, good friend of mine, love him.
Yeah, Tigo, I saw you the other day on a pretty impressive leaderboard. So you guys are doing really well. Good for you guys. So okay, Marilyn, shifting gears a little bit here.
Okay.
We've talked about selling that value proposition. And when you and I were talking the other day, there were some creative ways that you talked about to actually create more value as a team brokerage, as that type of organization. Maybe we could go into a few things you're seeing there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that people can do. Some of the things that are a little external, but can kind of come back to you. I think about things like PR and research, because we do a lot of that with some of our clients. So PR is I think an underutilized tool, especially at the local level. So I think brokerages are doing a pretty good job with content marketing, and PR and content marketing are slivers away from one another, right? But there are great things that you're doing. It isn't always just about sales success, right? That sounds a little braggadocious sometimes. But right now, especially during COVID, there are so many things that brokerages and agents are doing. And there's some really fun ideas of things you can do to get your brand out there that gets your free PR. There's a great example of a brokerage that, actually, this was a top producing agent that did this, but a brokerage could do it too. They found a restaurant right near one of the hospitals that were serving COVID patients. They put $500 down, which in the scheme of things for advertising is not a lot, right? And promoted through all their social media channels that anybody that's doing the hard work to support all of us during COVID-19, go to this particular restaurant, use a little catchword that they had, and we'll give you free lunch. They got so much press coverage over that. And it was $500. Now, I mean, it could be more in a bigger city, whatever. But the point is, there's ways to demonstrate, because one of the things I love about real estate is that we have a lot of really, really great people as humans, right? With big hearts that genuinely love their customers. That's why they do real estate. I mean, they love to sell and they love commissions, obviously, but they really love the process of helping families. And so, use your creativity about what is it that gets you inspired to help a family, because there's so many different ways we can help these days. And use that through social media. As you know, Jack, Facebook and all those places now are much less expensive than they were, because so many of the big advertisers have dropped out lately. You can get some great exposure for $20 a day, even not much, and it can really do some great things for you. Here's another one that we do, and this may be reserved more for a larger brokerage, but something to think about anyway. we've created consumer research panels. Okay, and so what that basically means is we go out and we recruit people that have bought homes or are in the process of just looking in a particular market, and get them in a database, and then we ask them a variety of questions. So we did a survey about, how do you feel about COVID? How is the process of COVID changing where you might live? How is it? What's it doing about the house? Are your kids driving you crazy? Do you need a bigger house because you can't have them all in one room with every 5 people on Zoom at once, right? That was just an example, right? But what you can do is, if you have interesting questions about what you think is going on in the marketplace, you can recruit consumers to tell you the answer, and then you can, again, using PR and just your own content marketing tools, promote the answers that you find. So what is that doing? Number one, it's helping you as the brokerage and agents get closer. It's helping your agents feel like they have a leg up because they've got information that other brokerages don't. And it can be used as brand promotion and potentially a great way to build opportunities with your local newspaper, because you're providing insight. Right now they're desperate for stories, right? Certainly stories about COVID, but even stories that aren't about COVID is really, we listen to any more stories about COVID. So that's a great way to get, to do some things that really help you stand out, that don't cost you really a whole lot of money, but would just give you a different way of looking at it. Like, in other words, you're very in tune and very concerned about what consumers want, because we know that changes on a regular basis. When you keep asking them these questions, you're going to know the answer first. One, your agents are going to know it number with you, and then you can share that information. So that's a whole other way. There's lots of different things to do. For me, it's kind of call it grassroots or guerrilla marketing, right? What are some things that I can do that I think are true to my brand or true to my personality, not stuff that's just you copy from someone else that doesn't matter, that truly demonstrate how much you love and care about your community and your customers. They don't have to be super expensive. They just have to be creative and kind and fun.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love it. Well, those are all awesome ideas. And I think, a team brokerage, you can take a lot of those principles and apply them, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Well, cool. Covered some good stuff, Marilyn, here. What else? I mean, just in general, from what you're seeing, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Stories or ideas, or just advice in general on this topic of creating and selling a massive value prop back to your agents?
Well, here's one really dumb one. But it works, and forget about it. Okay. I would guess everyone on this call is in an MLS somewhere, right? That's kind of a basic thing. Everyone does it. I'll tell you a story about in Sarasota, Florida, an agent lost a $30 million listing. Nobody wants to lose a $30 million listing, right? Everybody wants to just even try to get one of those. It's exciting. Yeah. And so she called the consumer and just had to know, right? Because she thought it was down to 2, and it was. So she said, I thought we had great rapport. I thought you were really happy with the marketing program we brought you, et cetera, et cetera. And the owner said, oh, we absolutely were. And she said, well, why'd you give it to the other agent? The other agent said, well, I'm going to put it in the MLS, and it's going to get exposed to like 35,000 agents because, we're part of My Florida Regional. It's all over the state. So she mentioned that it was in the MLS and got the deal.
Wow.
Like, do you even think that's exactly the kind of thing we were talking about, Zach, that we assume that people know what we do and they assume the value of that, and they don't. So that's just one example, but are there other things like that, right? Like if you use a transaction management system, well, you know what? We're going to be doing this online together. And so anytime you have a question about what's happening or concern, you know what? You can text me right through that system and I'll get back to you right away. Or even better, you know what? I know that this is the first time or even the second or third time, but you're not a professional at doing this, right? That's why you hired us. Anytime there's going to be a next step coming in the transaction, I'll just give you a little heads up. I'll send you the document, let you know in advance. There's no issues with it. Just want you to see what's it about. Why do you have to sign it? Just little touch points like that. Again, what does that do? It drives home the fact you're doing a lot of things, to my point earlier, right? But it also shows someone that, okay, I don't have to worry. My agent's going to be there for me, 24/7 if I need them. Mm-hmm. And if I have any information, there's transparency. I can go look it up myself, because some people would rather do it themselves, right? So it's like little things like that. When you think about every step that you work on in the process, And you can package this, by the way, too. I would, if it were me, if I was doing a listing presentation, I would package all those up, not necessarily even have them written down, but remember them and work them through as you're talking through the presentation, right? But you're not going to have to worry because I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. Or here's another thing, and I do a series called the Coffee Chats, and people on it were like, stop saying this, Marilyn. We've heard you say it a million times, but it's true. The MLS is a very underutilized tool. And just because everyone has it doesn't mean everyone's using it, right? Same thing with Sisu. Just because everyone has it doesn't mean they're not using it. They're using it effectively.
That's right.
Just because everyone's got the same thing doesn't mean you can't differentiate yourself. And people forget that. Even within their own office, like, okay, well, I'm using Sisu, you're using Sisu, but here's the unique things I'm doing with it, and I'm going to take credit for that. And even if, by the way, you're not the only one doing it, consumers don't know that.
Right.
If you take credit for it, they think you're doing it. They don't necessarily know when everyone else is doing it. So never take for granted the great work and all the different components of what you do in the process.
I think a good, if you're going to take an action item from this, going through everything you do as a team brokerage agent, really outlining that value proposition. And part of what WAV Group does, correct me if I'm wrong, Marilyn, is actually putting some outside eyes on that, because sometimes you're blind to it when you've been inside of it for so long, right?
Yeah, so, we'll see, like I say, we'll see that laundry list of marketing tools, and I'm like, okay, why? Like, why do you have this one? Why do you have this one? And the dangerous thing is sometimes brokerages don't know why they have them. That's a different conversation, right? Because somebody told them they had to have it at some point, and that literally we had a brokerage. It took them 3 months to even figure out everything they were offering.
Interesting.
You got to get them all on one piece of paper first, right? But then, we can talk to you about, and Sisu is a great example where you have all-in-one system. Sometimes you're buying, technology 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that added. I'm going to make up dumb numbers for examples, right? That cost you $100 a month, and Sisu might cost you $20. I know these aren't real numbers. I'm just saying for argument's sake, right? Sometimes all-inclusive packages, number one, are easier to use because all of the different tools connect to one another.
Yeah.
Right. The data flows so easily from one piece to another. And then the other thing is that it's just, you're not buying over and over and over and over. Sometimes, you're buying 7 tools and about 25% of each of those tools overlaps with one another. So you're buying really like 10 tools when you really need 1 or 2. Yeah. Right. So that's, we look at that a lot. Again, we also talk to people about how are their agents feeling. I can tell you that we've done surveys for brokers with their agents and found out that agents were very unclear about what their broker offered and were really not sold on the fact that these tools were really meaningful. They didn't even know what they were. They didn't know why they mattered. So there's a lot of different ways to get a handle on it if you need a third party to take a look at it.
I love it. Well, that's awesome insight, Marilyn. Thank you for hopping on.
Sure.
One last thing I want to throw out. Doing this exercise will be good for selling your internal value. It would also be an amazing exercise to dial in your recruiting efforts and your recruiting plan, because you're going to hit 2 birds with 1 stone in that. So
exactly, recruiting and retention are so closely linked. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Yep. All right, Marilyn. Well, we're gonna let you go now. Thank you for hopping on. It's been very insightful. If I want to get in touch with WAV Group, where do I go if I wanted to look at working with you guys closer?
You could just email me at Marilyn, Marilyn at WAV. We say WAV Group, but it's actually wavgroup.com. Or you can just go to wavgroup.com and sign up for our newsletter, and you can start to see the types of things that we do. Or you can give me a call if you'd like at 805-748-9118.